my interns. I went around looking for these kind of wood. We manufacture, I mean, we actually made them, and then we put black plastic sheets, and then we put cocoa peat, and you can see plants growing in them. And this is another very interesting thing I want to talk about. If you see here, I have a little drain pipe, and I have a bottle here like this where I made a hole. Now, what is this bottle here for? The bottle is here because I have inclined this tray by about 5 degrees so that the excess water in the root zone is drained into this. I do not waste the water that drains out. I take the same water because it's pure good nutrient water, and I pour it back to my plants. So there is no wastage of even one drop of water, which is conservation of water, and that's the most important thing that you need in today modern technology in agriculture, where we don't waste precious water. So you can see all these have these plastic bottles here, and they are all meant for collecting the drained water and reused. We always make sure that we use that water for that same tub. We don't put it for another plant. The reason is because if this plant has a root disease, it will spread to the other plant. So you don't want that to happen, so you put it back only in that same trough. So there is so much of advantages in this field, in this science, and people, it doesn't take much. It's very inexpensively people can actually grow plants, vegetables, certain herbs in their homes. So here you can see I'm growing something which people may not believe. I'm growing lettuce, which is actually, this is a variety that comes from California. It's a leafy lettuce. It's very good to eat with sandwiches or even with your chapatis and other things, and it's so crisp and nice. And I'm growing this in sheer water, only in water I'm growing this. I'll show you as well how it looks when you lift it up. So you can see here, this is lettuce growing. It's been growing for about 25 days now. It's almost ready for harvest, and you can see the roots, how beautiful the roots are. They're absolutely white. When they're absolutely white, it means that the root zone of this plant, the root zone environment is perfect. So the thing is, here again, it doesn't really cost anything. It's just a thermocol sheet. Even this you can pick up from scrapyard and you can use it. You just need some sponge and then put the plants into this system. So that's lettuce. We are now just preparing another bed. We had a small fungal infection in the water, so we immediately have removed the water. We have washed this whole tub with Dettol, and we have dried it in the sun. We have given it good UV treatment, so it is ready now for planting. So this is how it is. We keep monitoring our plants. We keep studying what the root zone environment is. And one more beautiful thing I forgot to tell you, which I will again explain here, is that every morning what we do, because there is no aerator here, we don't use, as I said, we don't use 1 watt of electricity at all. Any kind of fossil energy is not used. We only rely on human effort, human energy, and sun's light. So here in the morning, with using clean hands, what we do is we create bubbles. We create bubbles like this. So we create bubbles means we are increasing the oxygen content of the water. When we increase the oxygen content of the water, the plants are happy at the root zone, and they don't get diseases, and the uptake of nutrient is perfect. Every 3-4 days, what we do, we check the height of the thermocol, because the water keeps, when the plant transpires, the water keeps evaporating, so you know that there's time to pour a little more of nutrient water. We check the electrical conductivity, which we also call EC, and the pH of the water, and if required we correct it so that the plants are growing at the right EC and pH. Every plant has a particular pH and an EC value, and an EC level depending upon the stage of the crop. So if the EC is extremely high in the beginning and the babies, when the plants are very small, they can't take that kind of stress. But as they keep growing and they start to flower and fruit, we keep shifting the EC value, and sometimes even the pH values. Normally in hydroponic, we say 5.5 to 6.5 is an ideal range for pH, and EC can be, it depends upon the plant. So like lettuce normally is very low, it just needs about 1.1 or 1.2 EC. So that's another beautiful thing about hydroponic, where you actually test and see what is what. Another thing is when the nutrients are made and given to people who do this in the household, most of the people will, householder may not understand pH and EC. But as we all know, when the pH level goes up in the water, there are certain elements that will start to drop down. So what we do is we use chelated minerals. By using chelated minerals, we ensure that even if the pH has gone up without the knowledge of the person running the garden, there will be no suspension of nutrients, and thereby there won't be nutrient deficiency in the plants. There are different kinds of containers and different kinds of ways of putting the substrate into different kinds of bags, or like pots and other kind of things. Here what we are using is, we are using what we call a grow bag. This grow bag basically comes with a coco peat slab inside, and we hydrate it by pouring water, and it becomes big and thick, and then we actually transplant the plant into the grow bags. So this is actually a closed type of grow bag. It has got drain holes at the bottom, it's got holes at the sides, so that there is a lot of oxygen availability to the roots, and this is how it is growing. As you can see, this plant is growing really healthy and really beautifully. Okay. Yes, of course, we take a lot of care to ensure that there are no, as much as possible the pests are under control. So we ensure that everything is looked at day and night. From the morning to evening that we spend here, we are very particular to look for pests and diseases. So that is one type of grow bag. And then you have these very simple, those are more expensive and they are used in commercial hydroponics. And this is what we call, as you can see, this one, this is a very simple plastic bag that comes pre-punched with holes from the factory. They are sold in kilograms in weight, and you get different kinds of sizes. You get different diameters, you get different height, and you choose that grow bag based upon that plant. And because certain plants will have a longer period or a longer cycle of life, and they may have a greater root mass. So if the root mass of that plant is very high, what happens is you need to have a bigger grow bag. So you can choose the grow bag size based upon that particular plant. So that is an open top grow bag. They are really inexpensive and very easy for any farmer with a poly house. Now if a farmer has a poly house and he is doing a soil cultivation, we can convert him into this kind of methodology very inexpensively without extreme exposure of finance. So as you see here, we are growing different kinds of plants in this environment. Normally in a shade house or a greenhouse, we don't grow more than one crop, because when the environment is controlled, you cannot give two environments inside the same greenhouse to two different crops. So you always grow one crop in one greenhouse. So but here, because it's a demonstration which we are preparing for the Agri Intex, where all the public will be visiting and seeing, therefore we have different plants so that people have an idea of what is what. So that is about the grow bags and the plants. And then as you see, you can, we have created a small trellis system here where we actually tied up the plants, so that because these are climbers and they can climb over these strings. Actually speaking, the string has to be a little more stronger than what they are, but here it's only for a demo purpose, so we just put slightly more thinner strings. But normally you use much more tougher strings, because when the cucumbers hang, there is so much of weight over every single plant. You would have kgs and kgs of cucumbers hanging, so you need to have strength to hold it up. And here we are also demonstrating something, of course, which is not used in simple hydroponics. I will talk about it. That's called as the pheromone traps and the sticky traps and things like that. If you see here, there are 4 tanks out here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This contains water. This contains what we call as grow nutrient. This contains something called bloom nutrient, and this contains something called root nutrient. Now, water is basically water for any other purpose, like just to water the plants or something. The grow nutrient is also water, but here we have all the macro and micro elements mixed into this water, which is 100% water soluble. Because it is 100% water soluble, what happens is the plants get their food, and the plants can only eat their food in available form. So here we are giving plants all the minerals it needs in an available form, in an ionic form. So when they are in ionic form, the plants can actually, the uptake is better, they can eat it, they can actually eat their food better and digest them better. So grow is something that you use for all plants during vegetative stage. Whether it's a rooting vegetable or a shooting vegetable like tomatoes, or if it's carrots or whatever, you always give grow till the time you find that the fruits have started forming, or the flower is coming. When you see the first flower coming, for a vegetable that grows on the shoot zone, we move from grow to bloom. So there we reduce the nitrogen, increase the content of phosphorus, potassium and other things, and we change the proportion. Everything else remains the same, the elements are just the same. And in the next one, if you see, for example, a carrot is beginning to develop, that means that is time to change from grow to the root. So in root, what happens is you increase the phosphorus, and potassium increase means it helps in fruit growth. So we have 3 different general formula for growing all these type of plants, but normally in commercial cultivation it's a very different thing, because we have machinery and equipment which can actually continuously monitor. You set the pH and EC, and the machine will actually, the irrigation controller will take care of all that. But in simple hydroponics, you just need to have some tanks like these. They should be kept in the shade, more cool. And you can see here I put a red jacket over these drums. Why have I put this red jacket? Not for it to look nice or smart. I put it because I wet it continuously, and in a hot place, in hot places what happens, the water gets very hot, and you can't give hot water to the plants because there's no, when the water gets hotter, the oxygen escapes. So here we keep the water as cool as possible. When you put water on this jacket, it evaporates, and when it evaporates, it causes, and evaporation, as all of us know, causes cooling. It's something like when we are sweating and sit under a fan, as our sweat evaporates, we feel more cooler and cooler. Same thing is adopted here. It's very simple. Even for a person who doesn't have too much money, you can use a simple gunny bag. A simple gunny bag is enough. Just wet it once in a while. So this we call as the nutrient station. It's called the nutrient station. So from here, all the water is taken in, and hand watering is done in a simple garden. You can even go for a drip irrigation if you like. You can, there are nowadays systems where you can do drip irrigation by gravity, or you can use a pump. You can use pressure compensated lines for drip irrigation, or you can use just simple drippers where the water flows from gravity and goes to all the plants. Right now, because this is an exposition and we've got lots of plants to show, and we cannot give different EC, pH and other things, so we are just giving a very general formula. But you can see, even with a general formula, you can see all plants how they are responding. They're simply looking beautiful, and day by day we can see that growth happening. We are also demonstrating here the use of pheromone traps. We have lures for different kinds of plants which are pests. Different plants are attacked by different kinds of pests, and they get attracted to the pheromones. So we have pheromone traps. These have been given to us for demonstration by Biocontrol Research Labs, Bangalore, which is a subsidiary of Pest Control of India. This is another type of trap which is also nowadays used by farmers in the fields. So you put a little lure here and water. So when the flies come in, they fall into the water and die. So they collect all the insects in this. So your crops are safe from pest attack. So we are demonstrating that as well. Then you have these type of hanging pheromonal traps. This is also interesting. It's got water here, and the insect flies in like that towards the lure, and it falls into the water and it's collected inside. So once in a while, when it gets all full of insects, we clean it and we wash it nicely and put it back there again with fresh water. So that's how that is done. If you see here, we've used a lot of, as I said, recyclable material. We have saved a lot of money by, if you see the trays which we have manufactured, not manufactured, these are all old corrugated sheets which are lying where nobody wanted it actually. We brought them. We have used even, in some cases we have used hollow block that was available. Some cases we have used paint drums as the base, which are old paint drums, as you can see. So we have saved a lot of money. And we also have something which I would like to talk about. We have these little things called the sticky traps. As you can see, if you focus close by, if you very closely focus, you can see how many flies and different kinds of insects have been caught by the sticky trap. You can also do, it is not only for catching the insects, these grid lines will tell you what is the kind of, what is the kind of activity in the greenhouse, of what kind of insects are operating here. We can actually monitor the pest activity inside the greenhouse. So once you know what kind of pests are in the greenhouse, you know what kind of treatment is required, because each pest reacts to a different pesticide or different kinds of pesticides. So those things also can be studied. So we use sticky traps. Now here is another type of sticky trap for people who cannot afford these because they are a little more expensive. We just take old wooden boards, cut them to 1 feet by 1 feet size, and there are two colors. One is yellow and one is blue. There are two colors by research which has been found insects get attracted to. Some get attracted to yellow, some get attracted to blue, and here we have just put a light amount of grease, old grease or even old engine oil from your motorbike or car. Very lightly you put it, it should not fall on the plants. They get stuck, insects come and get stuck to this trap. So very simple methodologies are available, and we use it to advantage. And we have many ways. Even as a simple hydroponics garden, you can have many different ways to either trap insects or to vector them away from the garden. Like here, I want to show you one more thing. If you come this side, Hanu, if you please come this side. I can show you something here. I have small little bowls out there. I have kept those bowls because I make it easy for the ants to find their food. Instead of going and finding their food in the plants, they can actually, if you can even see an ant is now walking into it. Can you see? It's coming into it. So they, instead of going and destroying the plant, they can come and eat their food at more easily because they love sweet, the ants. So they are happy, they don't trouble the plants, you are looking after them, they are happy, everyone's happy. So the plants are in good condition. So this is another way to sort of vectoring ants or insects away from the plants. I'll show you something really very interesting here also. If you see why I have hung this is just a plastic pouch which costs really next to nothing. I've tied it up just to tell people and explain to people what this is. This is water inside a plastic polythene bag, and when light falls from the sun, the light passes through and this acts like a lens. When it acts like a lens, the light coming out diffracts and goes out like that. So when that happens, insects, almost all the insects have compound eyes. So when the light hits their compound eyes, they get dazzled and they fly away from the garden. So this is a very simple thing. Even this can be even used in fields. Even in the fields you can have this bamboo or something and hang these little traps, I mean this kind of simple things to keep vector away the insects from your garden. So there are many things you can do to actually keep away insects and things. Also in hydroponics we do not, I mean in simple hydroponics or in normal hydroponics we do follow something called integrated pest management. As much as possible we do not use any dangerous chemical pesticides. We use in simple hydroponics we use simple things which you can make at home like green chili spray, turmeric spray, neem spray, garlic spray, tobacco spray, milk powder spray. You can make different kinds of sprays at home and you can actually spray the plants with that. And we mostly what we do is we use it more as a preventative so that insects don't attack, and it is before the fact, not after the fact. So that is another thing that I wanted to tell you about, using very simple herbal methodologies or very organic methods to make sure that insects do not actually destroy the plants. Because a pest attack can actually destroy crop even in 24 hours time. You can have a complete destruction of a crop. But yes, we take a lot of care to make sure that the insects are kept or the pests are kept to a minimum. Same thing with diseases. Here also sometimes there might be a disease. You look at a leaf, it might look as if it's a disease. Sometimes it may not be a disease, it might be a nutrient deficiency. If that happens, we also have different kinds of foliar sprays. We actually spray on the leaves and we make sure that that particular missing element is compensated for, and when it is compensated, what happens? The plants once again regain their proper health and they start to look beautiful again and they reach their genetic potential. Most often what happens is because we are not giving the right environment to the plants, they are not able to reach their genetic potential. When I say genetic potential, there is a God-given potential for every plant to be able to produce a certain amount of yield. So when you say a particular variety of tomato, the God-given nature of that plant is to give 5 kg of tomato per plant per its life cycle. But sometimes you guys get 1 kilogram. The reason is because those plants are not getting the basic nutrition in the right environment. But in this technology, since we take care of nutrition and the environment in a very big way, you find that the plants are able to reach, they get ideal conditions which make them reach their genetic potential and give very high yields as well. So that is the description about, a bit more description about how we administer the plants. One thing which is very important in hydroponic, very important, and we give a lot of importance to it, is the health of the root zone itself. If the root zone is not in a state of good health, the shoot zone is not going to perform. You are going to get a lot of stress at the roots. It could be salt stress, it could be stresses due to what you call different bad bacteria, anaerobic bacteria which are operating. So that what happens is it actually puts a lot of stress on the plant, and the plants either they die or they may not give the best results, and or you may get fruits which are not of the right size. You may get misshapen fruits sometimes. You may get fruits that don't have the right color, the texture, the taste. So in hydroponic we give a lot of importance to the root zone. We monitor the root zone perfectly. Because we monitor the root zone perfectly, we also introduce in commercial hydroponics, we are introducing different kinds of friendly bacteria which actually creates a colony around the roots. We use certain methodologies to strengthen the root zone and thicken the cell walls so that they cannot be penetrated by various other types of bad bacteria. which will create colonies there. So that is pretty much a general description about simple hydroponics and generally about commercial hydroponics. And here of course it's very difficult to show commercial hydroponics. We are using a shade net here and we are open to the rain. So when you have a shade net like this, you also get fine dust inside, and fine dust carries a lot of microorganisms which can actually affect your plants. But in a greenhouse with a polyfilm, what happens is you can actually take a lot of precautions to make sure that there are no, you reduce the incident of pest and disease. We are very particular about greenhouse hygiene management. We believe that cleanliness is the most important thing in a greenhouse, because any disease can break out even by the very human beings not taking care of the hygiene. So we make sure that people wash their hands, we wash the tools. If you are using pruning tools, you don't go from one plant to another just cutting away or pruning away. What you do is you prune a plant, you dip it into a small jar which is attached to your waste, dip it into a Savlon or Dettol or something which is a mild kind of antiseptic solution, and then cut the other plants, because otherwise what happens is you will find that you will transfer the diseases from one plant to the other. We even say in a greenhouse, when you are working, you always work from the younger plants to the older plants, because older plants already have diseases. If you work from the older plant to the younger plant, what will happen is you will carry all the diseases to these poor little younger plants which will easily catch those diseases. So there are so many different